passe. Super, l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
It's Super Saturday in the Bundesliga. First against second, third against fourth. The four best teams in the league face off one after each other on a mega day for the Bundesliga to decide who is a real contender and who's just a pretender. And we're going to speak all about that on today's episode and check in with the Bundesliga. It's Alex Kulesh here, joined by Chris O'Reilly. How are you doing, Chris?
Good, I'm good, yeah. Exciting weekend to come in the Bundesliga. Can't ask for much more with a four-way race at the moment. I think the four teams have really established themselves as the actual contenders. You have a couple of teams that aren't too far behind, to be fair. I mean, two great stories in Gummersbach and Lemgo, who are just a point behind Berlin, but we're not getting caught up in the Melsungen Hanover fairy tales like last year. It's all about the established teams and having them battle it out. No, we were hurt too much last season to let that get the better of us again.
Absolutely. And we have Tim Dettmar coming in from the Dritte Halbzeit podcast, also a long-time Patreon of the podcast. So, you know, that's an extra bonus. I think at this stage, we have had at least 3 Patreon members join the podcast to speak about handball. So I can't guarantee that as a bonus if you join, but it is a good...
It's not a guarantee, but it doesn't hurt your chances.
It doesn't hurt your chances. So if you are a Patreon member, again, thanks a lot for following us. You would have had a full podcast this week as well, where we talked... What did we talk about?
We talked about perhaps the biggest transfer duo of history of all time, and whether it is in fact gonna create the best backcourt of all time. That's one to join for. That was out yesterday as we recorded, so on Wednesday when you're listening to this. So yeah, that's still very much a good reason to jump on board.
Yeah, so if you want to listen to us discuss the DKM transfer rumor and whether that potential Fuchs Brilliant backcourt is going to be the best backcourt ever assembled, that is only for the Patreon listeners. So just €3 a month to sign up for that. Join us. It's good fun. You get all the benefits, including the Discord. So it is a good time to join. And maybe before we dive into it, Chris, when we recorded that podcast, you had your hand in your head and you were like, oh, why am I going to do the weirdest match of the week in the Champions League? Why is it Pellister versus Szeged? What a waste of time. And what happened?
Perhaps the greatest game, not of all time, but it was it lived up to it. There's something about that title, you know, doesn't mean, I don't know if it means very much to the average fan, you know, but it does something to the smaller teams. There's something about it. It's, you know, it's a different ball, a different sticker on the floor, but it seems to inspire something. And it inspired a victory over Szeged, which has catapulted them into contention in the Champions League to qualify for the first time for the playoff round.
Yeah, big game. Bitola, of course, in North Macedonia, an absolute cauldron. A lot of teams. It's great fans. I don't know if there's this German guy on Instagram, and he posts videos of going to games in Bitola for these Eurofern Pallister kind of Champions League games, but also some of the big derbies, the against Vardar that have had insane atmosphere and crowd trouble over the last couple of years. They're pretty fun to watch, those videos. I don't know. Maybe you can...
yes, I found it.
Yes.
I typed in German Macedonia, and he was the first one to pop up there. Finn Macedonia is the guy's name.
Finn Macedonia.
Yeah, and he's got a big following. And yeah, I think that's the first video I saw of his was Pellister against Vardar, and then he did Pellister against Barca from a few weeks ago, which was a great game. And yeah, a proper cauldron. I mean, every single fan in there on their feet and screaming for 60 minutes.
Big win for Pellister. It does make that group a lot more interesting, adds a little spice into it. But there's one thing I just wanted to touch on before we get into this Bundesliga chat, and we haven't talked about it in too much detail so far this season. But Jim Gottfriedson is a ghost of a player. Like, what is going on? This was the Jim Gottfriedson that carried Sweden to European Championship, that was the talisman for Flensburg for so many years. The Jim Gottfriedson that, Flensburg fans were outraged that he was let go, that caused the trouble with Nikolai Krikow, the big signing for Szeged to bring them to the next level, to bring them to a place where they can win the Champions League. And he's averaged 1.8 goals and 2.1 assists in his 7 Champions League games this season. And Szeged have 6 points out of 7 games. And that's something is going wrong there.
Yeah, I did suggest a couple of weeks ago when talking about the international window, and we're talking about Spain and Sweden, that he may have been the reason for their downfall at the end. And it just seems like it's a very sudden drop off. He's not that old. He's only 33 years of age. There's
great age.
For a great age.
Great age.
I mean, Alex, how you're the prime of life right now.
That's it. I've got no injuries at the moment for the first time in about 4 years.
So we can't blame that, But I don't know if it is he's joined a new team, of course, new teammates, but he's also with a coach he knows very well, who's his coach for club and country, who should be putting all of his faith in him, giving him the reins. But he's down to pecking order. He's a bit part player.
Something needs to happen. I think we talked about the pressure on that could happen to Szeged, but Mikkel Appelgren is, I'm not sure if he did renew or is very close to renewing his contract. I think he did renew his contract, so there's still faith there. But, how long does that faith stay with underperformances like this?
And it was on the back of an absolute collapse against Veszprém just a few days ago in what is the biggest game for those clubs. They were 6 goals up on the 45-minute mark, and they lost that 6-goal lead in 10 minutes and lost the game at home again. So I think it's more results like that will get you at the end if you're a coach of that team.
Exactly. That's probably the big news from the midweek Champions League. We're, of course, recording this before the second round of games go in. But I think the biggest news is that, we've got Super Saturday. Flensburg, who have won 15 games in a row, are playing Magdeburg, who have won 12 games in a row, and Kiel, who have won 8 of their last 12. Real strugglers in this group play a Füchse Berlin team who have won 12 of their last 13. So 4 teams in insane form at the top of the biggest league in the world are facing off on Saturday. So we'll talk about who exactly is going to come out on top.
So joining us on the podcast for the first time to speak about the Bundesliga, our check-in now that we're already a third of the way through the season, we have Tim Dettmar from the Dritte Halbzeit podcast. Now, Tim, the Dritte Halbzeit, from what I know and remember, playing handball in Germany and Austria. It was more about the beers after the game. Is that more the vibe of what you're going for the podcast as well?
Yeah, that's a good description. I'd say the setup is like at the start of the podcast, I was an amateur player joined by Jens Schöngard, former national player for Germany. So we had that kind of combination going, and as well the side of the guy who works in media and myself, and of course the player side. So we thought that could be something the handball world needed. It's not that bad. I think we celebrating 3 years in January. So
nice.
The handball podcast scene in Germany, there's a lot out there. It's maybe when we started as a podcast, there was only a couple out. It was us and Sasha Stat in the handball podcasting world, but now it's really taken off, especially in Germany. You know, it's including some of the bigger ones like Hand of Hearts. So it's a rising scene. Always good to have more people speaking about handball, and I think a lot of people are just speaking about German handball more and more because the Bundesliga has become truly the place to be. So do you feel that extra attention within Germany for the Bundesliga?
I think so, yeah. Especially since the streaming rights went over to Dine. They had a huge push with their social media campaign. And I think more people see highlights of games directly, and that's the most important thing in today's world. And that really helps pushing the sport even more. I believe, even though our basketball team ain't that bad as well, but I still think that handball is the second best or second most watched team sport in Germany. We see it every January, especially when the German team reaches the knockout phase. It's like between 5 and, if it's really good, 8, 9, 10 million viewers in the biggest, in the biggest TV shows. Or so I think that's really showing how important handball is for Germany. And it shows as well in the Bundesliga, where like if ARD, it's like the first biggest channel in Germany, which is public. If they broadcast a match and it's a top match like on Saturday, probably 1 million people will be watching, and nothing compares to that in other team sports in Germany. So I think that really shows how important it is in Germany.
You mentioned Saturday, and it is truly a super Saturday, and says a lot about the fact that both of the games coming up, Berlin against Kiel on Saturday at 6, and then 2 hours later, perfectly right after that, is Flensburg against Magdeburg. So you have third against fourth, and then first against second, which makes our check-in come at a perfect time. And we're a third way through the season now. It's going to be a busy few weeks as the league packs in a bunch of games before the international break, before the Euro in January. So a lot is going to happen, a load of big games coming up. But before we look forward, Tim, we can have a little look back at the season so far. So many headlines, so many big things. But what are the kind of the main stories that have stuck with you over the last couple of months?
Well, of course, the situation in Berlin was intense at the time. I think it has calmed down a little bit over the past few weeks, because Berlin really gained some confidence again after some heavy defeats as well in the Bundesliga. Krikau seems to click with the guys. Gitzel is performing as always. So that was, of course, a big bombshell. Which, still I don't really understand and didn't understand at the time, but that's a different topic. And of course, in general, like all these transfer rumors, we had the Pütlik story also linked with Berlin. Now DKMM linked with Berlin. So it's really, really interesting. We have Kiel, who extended Philipp Jicha, which I know is a topic on here as well. So there are so many stories, and you said it, like the following month will be crazy. Like we have the quarterfinals in the cup with as well these two matchups we will see on Saturday. I think Magdeburg and Kiel will play on 23rd of December in the league. So very Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a good period, and it does definitely seem like those four teams that are playing on Saturday have broken away into the top pack. We don't see a kind of a surprise team like Melsungen really sticking in. Of course, they had some injuries. There's still some good teams, but the winner of the Bundesliga is going to come from these four teams. So I think maybe from your perspective, which one of the four teams has impressed you the most this season so far?
Yeah, that's difficult. I think in general, it's always Magdeburg because it's so crazy how, like, I think they are the most well-oiled machine in world handball. How they can do this year after year with the Champions League, with Club World Championship in the middle of the Bundesliga season. So they had a really tough schedule. Like the only draw they had at Erlangen was, I think, less than 48 hours after their away win at Barcelona. So that's completely crazy. So it kind of is really impressive what they are doing, but it has gotten so normal to everyone basically that it's not that impressive. So you really have to think about it and always remind yourself that there is something special. I don't think many people would have thought that Flensburg would be first placed after their start with the two draws at Wetzlar and against Stuttgart. But here they are. They look really, really good, even though they had some injury problems. They had some new additions in the backcourt. And yet they are still unbeaten as well. Won the Nord derby against Kiel in the end, very comfortable. So I think those two are probably the most impressive, but I'm also impressed by Kiel, to be honest, because they changed the way they are playing. I would say they arrived in modern handball. They gave the keys to Elias Ellefsen Ashipagotu finally. And yeah, he's just incredible. He's one of the best players in the league. It's the matchup of the two top scorers on Saturday, with him in second place and Gitzel on the other side. So yeah, the change of play in Kiel is really impressive as well.
Can you give a bit more on how you see the change of play? Like what has changed for Kiel, more than just Ashipagotu being an incredible player, but how they managed to actually allow him to thrive, because it felt like they tried him in that position last year, but the team around him wasn't ready. But it feels like they're syncing much better this year.
Yeah, I've got the impression that he now really feels the trust of the coach, of his teammates, and really thrives on that. Like he loves the one-on-one, and that always opens up some holes in the defense for his backcourt mates who aren't necessarily the one-on-one specialists. Like Eric Johansson can do it as well, but still his bread and butter, I think, is like the distance shot, as well as Emil Matzen, especially Harald Reinkind. So I think that's the biggest change. And overall, I'm impressed, even though they don't have the best defense or one of the best defenses. Still, I think it can't be underestimated how good the connection between Laube and Nasinovic works so far. Laube has the second most blocks in the league, 14, which is pretty impressive. He came during the summer, so he wasn't there from the start of summer training, which is also kind of impressive. And I think these yeah, these are key parts for a newer Kiel in the season.
That has to be the biggest kind of surprise package in terms of two players taking such a big role for a big team, because Lauba, I think many people were looking forward to see what he could do in the future, but maybe we're thinking about him in like 1 or 2 years' time. It's like, oh, he'll have a season to settle in, he'll be like third choice, but straight away really kind of made a role for himself. And from what I remember, when Nacinovic was announced, people were kind of like frustrated that it's like he's not a Kiel player. He's not good enough to be a Kiel player.
Yeah.
Like, why is he being signed? But here we are now, and they have been, I think the fact that they've been punching up so much is a key factor there.
Yeah, I think that's also a new reality for Kiel. And I think the fans have to, get used to that. We always talk about, like, especially in Kiel, that the audience isn't maybe the youngest. They know Kiel for many, many years and know how good they were and how difficult the last seasons were in terms of the placements, especially in the Bundesliga. Of course, they won titles, but this season again, no Champions League. Of course, it's good when you win the cup, but like Kiel has the role, always had the role to win all titles, and they want to do that, but it's shifting, especially with the development of Magdeburg in the last 10 years or so since Bennett Wiegert really took over. So that's really interesting to obsess in the following years, of course. I think they are doing a great job on the transfer market for next year. Markuc, Köster, I think they will be really, really nice additions. I think, especially with this new style of play, they will fit perfectly. We can expect big things, I think, from Kiel again.
Yeah. So maybe looking forward to this matchup between third and fourth. Kiel are coming in good form. I think Shipagotu has been just incredible. Just the last weekend, scoring 14 goals against Bergische HC, but also getting absolutely brutally kicked and beaten and destroyed. So maybe teams are trying to play that tactic that the Bundesliga does allow. It's a rougher league. That's generally what we see, that you can get away with more in the Bundesliga than international level. But they do have a bit of injury worries. So Eric Jonsson wasn't available for that game. I don't think he'll be available for the weekend, as far as I know. And of course, Emil Madsen are out. Despite that, you've got Bilic and you've got Duvniak, you've got Reinkind, you've got the experienced heads. But do you think that those two injuries are a lot for Kiel to handle, and can they sustain their form without those two key players?
I think it's a lot. It's tough. It's always tough against Berlin, at Berlin as well. So they can't rely on their home crowd, which always gives a boost. Nikola Bilic is slowly coming back, but he has to. So he needs some time to fit in back again in the squad, I think. Even though his stats are solid, but the playing time is limited at the moment. So yeah, it's really, really hard when you think about Emil Madsen is their fourth best goal getter and is missing for how many weeks now? So it's really, really important that he is there for them, because Reinkind, of course, had many injury troubles over the last few years, is a bit up and down. So yeah, I think Berlin has the advantage, but over the last years, it's been pretty even. I think 2 wins for Berlin, 2 draws and 1 win for Kiel. So yeah, I think it will be mainly relying on Shipagotu and how he is approach by the Berlin defense, which can be rough as well. So I think Masenic, for example, is licking his lips.
Yeah, do we have a red card? Can we put a bet on a red card for Masenic? Because that's, I think there's decent odds on that.
From the Berlin perspective here, we're recording on an early Thursday evening. In a couple of hours, I'll be commentating on Jens's former club, your colleague's former club, Sporting, up against Berlin in Portugal. They have to fly home then, and will have much less than 48 hours to prepare for this game, which is a really short turnaround. Usually, I think this is probably got to do with the fact that you have these top four teams in action, because otherwise it would be easily on a Sunday, this contest. It's nothing the players aren't used to, having these short turnarounds, but still it's not ideal for them. More than that, the fact that they've had 3 defeats so far this season, and they are in the chasing pack, this feels like the onus and maybe a little bit of the pressure is very much on Berlin. They have to win this game to stay in touch. For Kiel, as you said, they're maybe not expected to, and there can be a bit of freedom with that. But Berlin, considering where they are, also considering now that we know there's probably going to be 3 Champions League spots for German teams, this is a must-win game. They'll be thinking beyond third place, of course, but in order to do that, they've got to win on Saturday.
Definitely. And on Berlin's side, I think the biggest key is the performance of Milo Saviev. And I think he is the most hot or cold goalkeeper in the Bundesliga on this top level. He can win you top games, but he can also lose you games like against Hamburg a few weeks ago, where they conceded 39 goals, and he saved 1 from 18. Still, even though Lars Ludwig came in and had more than 30% save percentage, he was then resubstituted in the crunch time and let in 2 really, really bad goals from Jakob Lassen. That's also a fascinating battle in goal in Berlin over the next few months, also with the rumors, if he's leaving, if he's staying. I really don't understand what the plan is at the moment, because I do think they could give Lasse Ludwig the keys to their goal, and it would fit to their philosophy as well. So why not? And then maybe even start this season by slowly but surely trusting him more in these situations. I remember last season, the match, I think, at Erlangen, Lasse Ludwig had a fantastic crunch time where he saved them a point. So he has already proven that he is capable of it. And at the moment, he's the better goalkeeper, in my opinion.
The stats back you up there, Tim. Having a quick look at it, they have in the Bundesliga the same amount of saves, interestingly, but exactly the same. But Ludwig with a higher percentage, and Ludwig with a much higher percentage, with a bit less time played in the Champions League. But it really feels, regardless of that from the outside, it seems like they still treat him as the guy who could be shipped off to Potsdam at a moment's notice, like the young guy who's just there if they're desperate. I mean, it's not quite that bad, but it's still very much Milo Saviev's domain.
Also, it's a really tough stretch for Berlin in the next few weeks in the Bundesliga. Of course, Kiel is one thing, but after that, at Rhein-Neckar-Löwen, at home against Lemgo, at Hannover, at Flensburg, and it could be do or die basically in every match with the losses they already have. And so it's tough. Champions League also, not to forget. So it's really a tough month ahead for Berlin. And I also think, as you said, Chris, the pressure is more on Berlin's side.
Yeah, and on the other side, there's pretty good news for Kiel, as Perez de Vargas made his return, his triumphant return to handball. I think it's very needed. So far this season, Andy Wolf has also been hot and cold, and Kiel have gotten away with it. But he's had plenty of halves in this season where he's really just gone for, 1 from 18, that type of level. So it feels like Wolf, despite having such incredible level, he's not right at his peak of consistency, the type of thing that we saw in Kielce, where honestly he would never have a bad game or a bad spell longer than 5 minutes. This season that hasn't been the case, so I think Perez de Vargas is a pretty big help for this Kiel team, and honestly it might be one of the greatest partnerships we've seen in quite a while.
I'm excited.
Yeah, same. I always loved watching De Vargas in Barcelona, and he's like such a character, such a positive vibe that he spreads. Also, like the communication with Wolf, with Novotny, who's like the third string goalkeeper now again, and yeah, it looks really good, like the relationship they are building. That was also not always like that with Andy Wolf, if you remember back in the time with Niklas Landin. So I think also Wolf, has of course gotten a bit older, a bit wiser, maybe a bit more calm in that regard. We see it in the national team with David Speth as well. So yeah, they are probably the best duo in the world. If both are fit and on their level, Kiel could beat anyone.
And maybe just the last point on the game, we spoke about Kiel's injury worries, but on the other side, Berlin also, they lost Fabian Vida for a long period of time, and Niels Lichtlein pulled up with an adductor injury in the Germany training camp, and I don't think he'll be available. I think the prognosis is early December. So we have two teams with backcourts that are quite stretched. It's going to be Grundal, Giesel, and Anderson for Füchse Berlin. They're going to play most of the game. That also, it puts an onus on how the defensive substitutions work. I think that's a bigger loss for Füchse than Johansson, Madsen for Kiel. So from my perspective, I think Kiel are coming into this game in a slightly better position, and anything can happen, but I think they edge it for me. You don't have to give a prediction.
Yeah, come on, Tim, give us a prediction.
You don't have to give a prediction, but it is Super Saturday. Come on.
Yeah, you're right. So the funny thing is, we have like a cooperation with the Handball Bundesliga this season on the podcast, where we have a prediction competition with our community, and so we have to predict games every episode. So at the moment. Right now, I have a +3 for Füchse.
Oh.
But I don't know if that changes over the next 48 hours.
That's fair. Yeah, there is home advantage, but yeah, also that Champions League game. I think the last loss that Füchse did have, Hamburg, was after 3 days after they played against Veszprém. Got the big win, big game, big effort, and having to turn that around. It's probably different, shaping up for like a massive game against Kiel at home versus a kind of, let's say, more routine game like Hamburg. But I think, for me, those few things add up to. Again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Kiel being favourites. I haven't had that feeling in such a long time.
I have this one down as a thrilling draw. They're really good. A good point on that game as well. Like, they will have Sporting tonight, and they did a lot of running. It was a very physical game against Veszprém. It'll be a lot more running today against Sporting, and I see that Berlin have added a few more players to the squad for today, like William Reichardt, Lauro Pichiri of beach handball fame, and Gabriel Kuffler, a young Austrian. So maybe maybe they're going to tank this one. I don't know. I've a feeling they won't. I have a feeling they won't. They won't. They'll play. They will play every game because they always do in Berlin. Which brings me on to a very similar point. I want to ask about the other big game with Magdeburg and Flensburg, and with this Magdeburg side, who I was doing some training before we recorded, and I was thinking in the shower, I was counting just how many players Magdeburg actually use ever in a serious game, and it's 11. They only use 11 players basically in every game this season. You have the four wingers that play pretty much every game. They split time. You have one goalkeeper basically because Mandic will maybe get one penalty, and then you have Jonsson in defense and four backcourt players who play. Well, my question to you is that we've discussed this quite a bit. Like, what is the reaction in Germany to this? Like, you're hosting with a former professional player. Is this a topic that keeps coming up about how stuck to these players Bennett Wiegert is?
Not that much. I think maybe like the main thing is they mostly win those games. So why would you question that then, right? So I think that's probably why I don't really hear that. Funnily enough, I heard that about the plan in Hanover over the last few weeks, where they lost some games, and it was questioned why additions like Aho or like Tissier, okay, he was injured over the past few weeks, but like, why don't they play more, even if like Michalczyk didn't have the best weeks of his career over the last few, but that's a different topic. So in terms of Magdeburg, I don't really think that that's the case. And apart from the first game between Germany and Iceland, the backcourt trio is so in sync. It's incredible. Jonsson, plug and play. Like, he looks like a Magdeburg player since 5 years. It's incredible. And that's also why they have the fewest technical faults in the league, which is for a top team also impressive with 66. Yes, they have one less game, but still it's like 6 per match, which is a pretty nice number. And on the flip side, Flensburg, we roughly we touched on the fact that they had some changes in the backcourt and some injuries there as well. They have the 6th most technical faults in the league, so that will definitely be a deciding factor on Saturday. Goalkeeping position pretty much on the same level. All four can be extremely great. Hernandez, even if he had like against Löwen, I think his first half wasn't that impressive, but he came on and was there, and they won the game close, but they won in the end. And I think there is definitely pressure on Flensburg because they've lost the last 5 matches against Magdeburg in a row. So this negative record has to be broken. The last defeat was also pretty hefty. I think -8. There were some changes. Some players won't care about that probably and just want to win, of course. But I think for some players that is definitely in their minds.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Jonsson, and he's been, obviously in attack he gets to play sometimes, but defensively he's replaced Christian O'Sullivan in that centre block. And I was watching the game against Rhein-Neckar Löwen, and it was just a real classic Magdeburg game because I think Rhein-Neckar Löwen were played as well as they could. I think they were really impressive. Thrasterson was so impressive defensively. They were impressive after 40 minutes. They were 2 goals up. And, for a moment, actually, not even for a moment, I thought that they were going to win. That was the issue. Despite them playing as good as they can play, you just knew that Magdeburg were going to wear them out, as they do with so many teams. And in particular, that defensive pairing of Jonsson and Bergendahl, even though Saugstrup may be the best defensive player in the world, but I think that Bergendahl-Jonsson pairing is the most brutal center block pairing. Like, they beat people up, they wear people down, and they just, they hit so hard. And I think that is a difference between these two teams. And I want to see how, Putlik and Gergic, who have been a little bit up and down. I have to say, it's maybe a little bit harsh saying this because Flensburg have won 14 games in a row. Magdeburg have won 15, so it's two of the most informed teams in the world coming together. But at different times, Gergic and Putlik have had slightly worse games. So I think they can, that Magdeburg defense can beat them up and force one of them into a bad game. So maybe question here is, which of those players is it more important for Flensburg to have a good game, Gergic or Putlik?
I believe at the moment Putlik, because he's there a bit longer. He, at least what I've heard inside the locker room, is definitely one of the louder voices, especially if things aren't going that well. So I think he is still one of the leaders of the team, and Grgic, I think in the future could play this role definitely. I think it's really impressive how he has arrived quickly on this top level. There were some doubters who thought, Eisenach, that's cool, but can he do it in Flensburg? And he can. You said it, up and down, but what I really like about him is that he is so self-critical, that he talks to the media after a personally bad match and says, I was pretty shit today. So that kind of tells you what kind of person he is. And he is 22, I think. So that's so impressive in that age, at that age, for a player to have that, kind of not doubt, but self-critic, and go forward with it. So I think also very interesting what's going on with Luka Witzke. He could, I don't think that he will play a major role, but just to get some breathing for Putlik or Grgic, he can slot in for 5 to 10 minutes and change the game. I think, of course, he had a rough start. There were also some interesting rumors about him wanting to leave after 2 or 3 games, which was absurd. But I still think that he can be one of the best German center backs. And I really loved his connection with Juri Knorr in the German national team when they played together. And pretty much the same could be done with him and Putlik, or with him and Grgic. So they have some options there. So that's another key factor maybe in this match.
Yeah, and also I was about to say the correct answer is Lasse Müller is the most important player in the biggest games, but he's actually injured and out for this game, so a big loss for Flensburg, because it's big game Lasse Müller.
It feels like a real clash in styles as well, because it feels like we're seeing an evolution in Magdeburg in real time as well, to a team that used to enjoy scoring lots of goals and out beating teams that way, to now just enjoying the the scrap, more like it, and the psychological warfare that comes with facing those three men in the backcourt. Because they have, as you guys spoke about just a few minutes ago, worn teams down, and teams, like it's happened in the last couple of Bundesliga games. Like Hanover, it was the same. It looked like Hanover were actually going to get it done at some point before the international break, and Magdeburg won by 2 goals. Same with Rhein Leuven. That's why it was slightly a leading question about the squad depth, because it all feels like on paper a little bit unsustainable what they're doing. They're just getting over the line with a small squad, but they keep doing it, and they've kept doing it. They've been doing it for 3 years now in one way or another, which is what is so incredible. But my question then is about Flensburg and whether they have, do they have the defense that can deal with taking a lead or being in a game with Magdeburg and stopping them? Because it feels like the attacking side is almost not that important. It's like whether you can hold out for 60 minutes and not fall to that psychological breakdown that every team seems to over the course of 60 minutes. I mean, it was like 11 penalties they won against Rhein Leuven. They only scored 5 of them, but still, and you feel like that's going to happen again unless Flensburg are actually able to come out and meet Magdeburg outside of that 6-meter line, because once you're 1 against 1 on that line, it's a penalty, which is so infuriating if you're not a Magdeburg fan.
I think on paper, the middle block, like Blagotinšek and Gola, is really, really good. And they have been this season. In general, the defense has been quite good for Flensburg. They have the most steals in the league. Blagotinšek has the most blocks in the league, but I don't think that will do any favor in this match, because I don't think he will have the chance to block some more shots against this Magdeburg team. So there is a potential that maybe Blagotinšek, with his height and with his stature, is maybe too late in many situations, especially against Christensen, against Lagergren. I could see that, and it will be really fascinating. Also, one interesting fact I read before our episode last Tuesday, because of course we talked also in length about the game, is that Magdeburg was, over the last 10 years, always known for their tempo handball, for their speed, of course, with their wing players, and their counterattacks have gone down massively. They have the third, the 16th most, third less in the league. Only 17 counterattack goals, which is insane for a Magdeburg team.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, Flensburg and their tempo, Flensburg can beat you in so many ways as well at the moment. In positional play, with a backcourt power, with the one-on-one, but also with a tempo and with the counterattacks, where they are second in the league, over 50 counterattack goals. So it's going to be really fascinating to see, if the Flensburg defense can provide these chances. If yes, they'll have a good chance to win it. If not, then it's going to be really tough, and they can call some players from Rhein Leuven and Hannover and talk about how that feels.
So the answer is actually Emil Jakobsen. The question.
Yeah.
Who needs to have a great game. I could see him having a big role.
Well, we got to have a prediction then, right? If we went, since we're doing it, I can start. I predicted that Magdeburg are going to win in at least the first 20 games, or go unbeaten in at least the first 20 games in the Bundesliga. So I'm going to stick with that. I do think it'll be a really good game. That'd be close.
I predicted +2 for Flensburg.
Ah, very good.
Oh,
yeah. I think I'm going for another draw.
so lame.
2 50-50 games.
No, that's I think no. For the enjoyment of the league, let's go for Flensburg. Flensburg by 1. Emil Jakobsen penalty to win it.
like it. Like I do think that this game is more likely to end as a draw than the first game, actually. But yeah, I think Super Saturday is going to be a blast. I actually can't wait. It's going to be a good one. I think we haven't had something like this in recent memory, where you have the literally 1 versus 2 and 3 versus 4, the 4 teams competing for a title playing on the same day. So Bundesliga just keeps getting better.
It sure does. Tim, thanks a lot for joining us. The pleasure. And I'm sure we'll do it again. For any German speakers out there, they can listen to Tim on the Dritte Halbzeit. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, boys. Was a great honor as a long-time listener, as a long-time Patreon supporter. I really enjoy what you do, and it's so nice, to have this link up. Thank you, and let's enjoy this.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it, mate.
Thanks a lot, Tim.